He walked into the lobby with nothing but a calm expression, unaware that within minutes, he'd be treated like he didn't belong. No gold watch, no designer shoes. Just a man looking for rest after a long flight. But appearances deceive, and on this day, his would be used against him like a weapon. What the staff didn't realize was that the man they were about to humiliate had the power to flip their entire world upside down, and he would, in less than 24 hours. The Grand Elitaire Hotel was a place built on image, not quality, not kindness, not professionalism, but sheer arrogance disguised as luxury. It was the kind of hotel where perception mattered more than service. And when Michael stepped through its doors, every judgmental gaze locked onto him as if his presence alone disrupted their illusion of prestige. He stood quietly in the entrance, taking it all in, the sparkling chandeliers, the classical piano playing faintly in the background, the polished marble reflecting the cold glow of the lobby lights. He didn't belong, they thought. Not here. Not in their world. A family was checking in ahead of him, laughter, bellboys rushing to help, complimentary champagne poured into crystal flutes. But when it was his turn, the energy shifted. The receptionist's eyes narrowed subtly. Her rehearsed smile flattened into indifference. "Yes?" she asked, barely lifting her chin. "I'd like to check in. Just one night." Her fingers danced across the keyboard with fake professionalism. "We're fully booked." It was a lie. Michael knew it, and so did she. Just behind her, a digital screen displayed 4 available suites, glowing green with the word vacant. He glanced at it. She noticed, and for a split second, her fake confidence cracked. But she didn't correct herself. She didn't offer to check again. She had already made a decision, not based on policy, but on prejudice. Michael could have called her out. He could have caused a scene. But he didn't. He had lived through too many of these moments to waste breath on confrontation. Instead, he gave a slight nod, turned, and walked out with quiet dignity, while a nearby bellboy smirked, whispering something under his breath to a colleague. They laughed. He heard it. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Michael was not just any man. He was one of the most discreet real estate investors in the state. With ownership stakes in dozens of properties and hospitality businesses, he had access to capital, power, and connections that few could imagine. The Grand Elitaire? It was just another entry on a list of struggling assets being considered for acquisition by a private firm. A firm he secretly controlled. That night, as the staff of the Grand Elitaire relaxed into their routine, unaware of the storm they had just invited into their marble palace, Michael sat in his suite across town, not in anger, but in absolute focus. He wasn't thinking about revenge. He was thinking about opportunity. He made one call. Pull the numbers on the Grand Elitaire. I want the full breakdown, operations, debt, current ownership, everything. Tonight. By morning, he had the full report. The hotel was profitable, yes, but vulnerable, heavily leveraged, with multiple investor disputes behind the scenes. All it needed was the right offer, at the right moment. And so he made it. Through a third party, anonymous and efficient, the purchase proposal was sent. The numbers were aggressive, generous, but with strings. The hotel's parent company, desperate for stability, couldn't refuse. By 2 p.m., the deal was under legal review. By 4:30 p.m., the documents were signed. Ownership had changed hands. No headlines. No announcements. Just a transfer of power so quiet, so controlled, that even the staff didn't realize it had happened. At exactly 5:17 p.m., Michael returned to the Grand Elitaire, wearing the exact same outfit as the night before. No entourage. No threats. Just him, and a sleek black folder tucked under his arm. The manager noticed him instantly, the same man he had dismissed with a wave just 24 hours earlier. He walked over, already preparing to repeat the rejection. But before he could speak, Michael opened the folder and placed a single document on the front desk. It was the new ownership contract. His name. His company. His control. The receptionist's face went pale. The manager's jaw tightened. The bellboys froze mid-step. Silence fell across the lobby like a thick fog. "I believe," Michael said, his voice calm, controlled, deliberate, "I'll be needing a key. Suite 401 will do." The same suite they had claimed was unavailable. The receptionist didn't speak. Her hands shook slightly as she reached for the keycard. The manager opened his mouth, but no words came. There was nothing to say. Nothing to explain. Their arrogance had blinded them. Their assumptions had cost them everything. Michael turned the key over in his fingers for a moment before looking back at them one last time. "You judged a man by the clothes he wore. Not by the content of his character. That mistake just cost you your pride, and your job." And with that, he walked toward the elevator, leaving behind a room full of stunned silence and broken egos. But this was only the beginning. The elevator doors closed slowly behind him, sealing off the silence of the lobby like the final click of a lock. Michael stood inside alone, watching the floor numbers tick upward. Each lighted number wasn't just another floor, it was another step in reclaiming his dignity. But this wasn't about ego. It never had been. This was about principle. About proving, not with words, but with action, that people are not what they wear, where they come from, or how softly they enter a room. Suite 401 was as grand as its name suggested. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A crystal chandelier. A bottle of champagne on ice, one of the last orders placed by the previous management, intended for a VIP who never arrived. Michael walked in, placed the keycard on the table, and stood by the window overlooking the city. The very hotel that had tried to deny him a room now belonged to him, down to the last curtain hook. And yet, there was no smile on his face. No victory pose. Because the point had never been to win. The point was to expose something most people pretend not to see, the quiet cruelty of subtle discrimination. As he stood in the suite, his phone buzzed. It was his attorney. "It's done," the voice said. "The press will receive a statement in the morning. You're the majority stakeholder now. Full control." Michael's voice was steady. "No press. Not yet." He didn't want a headline. He wanted change. That evening, while the staff continued working, unaware of the full shift in hierarchy, Michael sat down with a pen and a yellow notepad. He began writing names. Not names of those who had insulted him, but names of longtime employees who had been overlooked. The doorman who greeted everyone with a genuine smile, no matter their status. The janitor who had held the elevator for him the night before. The waitress who, without hesitation, had offered him a glass of water while others turned away. They would be the new core team. And then, he began writing new policies, not just for service, but for culture. Training modules on bias, inclusion, and accountability. Anonymous reporting systems. Quarterly audits of guest treatment. If he was going to own this place, it would reflect the values he stood for. The next morning, he arrived at the hotel not as a guest, but as its official director. The manager who had ignored him was already at the front desk, coffee in hand, smirk on face. He still didn't believe what had happened. Still clinging to the illusion that things would somehow go back to the way they were. Michael approached him, folder in hand. This time, not for display, but for execution. "You're dismissed," Michael said calmly. The manager laughed, unsure if it was a joke. "I'm serious. Your contract was terminated last night. Security will escort you out." A wave of silence passed through the lobby. Guests turned. Staff froze. The receptionist dropped her pen. The manager's face twisted, caught between disbelief and panic. You can't. I already did. Two uniformed guards stepped forward. Not aggressively. Just present. The kind of presence that ends conversations. And just like that, he was gone. Michael turned to the staff. Some were avoiding eye contact. Others were visibly shaken. He stepped forward, voice firm but clear. This hotel is under new management. If you treat people differently based on their clothes, their skin, their accent, or their wallet, you will no longer work here. But if you're here to serve with respect and dignity, regardless of who walks through that door, your job is not only safe. It's valued. The staff exchanged glances. No one spoke. But something shifted. Later that day, Michael personally interviewed every employee. One by one. He listened to their stories. Their frustrations. The silent stress they had buried under fake smiles for years. He promoted 3 staff members that had been overlooked for years. Raised wages for housekeeping. Ordered a complete rebranding of the hotel's internal culture. He knew what many didn't: real power isn't shown by what you wear or what car you drive, it's in how you treat people when you don't need anything from them. That night, a woman checked into the hotel. She was older, quiet, and dressed modestly. The kind of person the old staff might have ignored. Michael watched from the lounge as the receptionist smiled warmly, helped her with her bags, and offered her a complimentary upgrade. No judgment. No hesitation. He smiled, not out of pride, but relief. The change had already begun. And no one even knew who he was, not yet. But they would.